We can wait just 1 minute here, and then we'll go ahead and get started. We have lots to cover.
Sounds good.
All right, Ryan, Etsy, you can go ahead and kick us off.
All right, sounds good. Well, welcome everybody to our office hours on HubSpot for manufacturers. My name is Ryan Root. I'm the founder and CEO of Lake One. We are a HubSpot solutions partner. I'm joined with my fellow partner in crime, Rachel Seco. She's our VP of Client Services, as well as two of our good friends, former client and fellow partner at HubSpot. I'm going to go ahead and let Chris and Ben introduce themselves here as we get started. So Ben, if you want to do an intro here quick.
So I'm Ben Henneberger. I work for Gerard Daniel. We're a wire mesh engineering-led company. So I'm part of the marketing department. And one of the things we've found with HubSpot and also the integrations is that it eases both our sales and marketing process and helps our company run better.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. And Chris, if you want to give yourself an intro here as well.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. My name is Chris DePietro. I am a senior solutions engineer here at HubSpot, and looking forward to this conversation.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you guys joining for this conversation. So we have a few things prepared that we're going to guide through our discussion here today. But if you have questions that come to mind as you're thinking about if HubSpot's right for you and your manufacturing firm, manufacturing, distribution, anything in the industrial space, feel free to drop that question in, and Rachel and I will keep an eye on the thread here and bring those questions to surface as well. The first place I kind of want to start here is HubSpot's been through a lot of transformation in especially the last 18 months. And I think it can be easy for people who have been watching HubSpot over the years to maybe have a lot of misconceptions about it, to think that it maybe isn't the right fit for manufacturers. There's a lot of complexity around the manufacturing business, the distribution model, the channel model. So I want to start with kind of what are some of the common misconceptions that people see when it comes to thinking about HubSpot as a possible CRM solution for manufacturing. I'm going to start with you, Ben, as our resident manufacturing partner on the call here today. What are some of the common misconceptions, especially as you were having conversations internally at Gerard Daniel about bringing HubSpot in? What were some of those common questions that you heard or concerns that you were facing?
Well, the biggest one, I think the biggest one in any company, if they don't have a CRM at all, is why do we need this? And I mean, that's something that a lot of people don't think that it helps. And then the next one that follows that is, oh, it's only for marketing. So one of the things you have to find out is that you have to show how things work and how things actually don't take over but add. And like Swiss Army knife, like in your pocket, you always want to have the proper tool there with you. And one of the things is that even goes off that is that if you're a large business, small business, maybe you think, oh, you don't need a CRM. So one of the things that is nice about HubSpot is they have the free levels, they have the regular levels, and you can work your way up. You do not have to start at the highest level. You don't have to do a major outlay. The great guys at HubSpot, except for Chris, who helped us actually originally get us up a while ago now, is that we started on one of the base levels. Like we said, hey, we're only going to pay for this much for marketing. Then we're going to get marketing figured out. We're going to get the next level, and then sales. And we've slowly gotten up, and now we're on enterprise level. And I mean, I think one of the things is that goes that way. And that's one of the biggest things. And that whole thing is a whole conversation. I know I threw a whole word salad there at everyone, but that's how it goes. That's how this conversation go with your board. That's how the conversation go with your senior management. It's why do we need this? We're not big enough for this, or marketing only needs this. We don't need this for sales. It doesn't help anything. And then, of course, bringing this home again is with manufacturing. Manufacturing is different. Most of your B2B, and B2B is a lot different than B2C. I originally came from B2C, and one of the things that I found out is, hey, B2B is a good 10 years behind on B2C is. And I mean, and part of that reason is that you have the ecosystem where you live in. It's much, for lack of a better word, clunkier, unfortunately. Of course, there's always an exception that breaks the rule. I mean, if you look at some of the tech spheres for B2B, you have things that they're light years ahead. They're in lockstep with B2C, or they're ahead of B2C sometimes. Yeah. But it all goes down to HubSpot is available for manufacturing, and it works with it. And I mean, that's where I live right now. HubSpot is a system that works for us and our company, and it's amazing for that purpose. I mean, I'll hand it off to Chris here to continue. I'm sure I've missed a lot of stuff, but
yeah, Chris, I want to double tap on kind of where Ben started with this notion that HubSpot's for manufacturing. I think a lot of people hear the word HubSpot and they're like, well, HubSpot's that marketing platform. HubSpot's, that tool that helps send emails, helps handle, conversions and inbound. But to Ben's point, there's a whole growth path and a whole growth trajectory there, especially for enterprise businesses where sales and support comes to play. So let's talk a little bit about that misconception that HubSpot's just for marketing.
Yeah, I mean, we hear that a lot. I think a lot of the conversations that if you were to ask me like 3 or 4 years ago, we talked to a manufacturer and they would say, we're looking for a marketing tool. We just bought Salesforce. And the perception was always that HubSpot is a marketing tool because that's where we got our start. That's where our focus was initially kind of centered on, is being the strongest, B2B marketing automation platform, primarily for small to medium-sized businesses. But, HubSpot has grown tremendously through a lot of internal development, as opposed to acquisitions and stuff like that. And so through that internal development, and we're seeing more and more every single day, especially with our inbound conference coming up in just a couple of weeks here, of more enhancements, more features, more functionality that we offer. And it's gotten us away from that, hey, we're just a marketing platform. HubSpot has robust enterprise CRM capabilities that can fit and have very like cookie cutter functionality to it, but also has the customization and all of the different like abilities to be an enterprise CRM that can be leveraged, not just by manufacturing, but honestly by any industry, similar to a lot of the big CRM players in the space. So, again, like historically, marketing was our focus, but we made a pivot long before I got hired at HubSpot, about 5.5 years ago, to really start to play in that CRM space. And we're starting to see it more and more now with companies like Gerard Daniel and others that look at us as, we're not just a marketing tool. We are a growth platform. We're a CRM with all of this different marketing, sales, and service powered functionality.
You can definitely attest to the rapid deployment of that roadmap. It feels like every single day, Rachel and I go into HubSpot. The rest of our team are like, oh, there's something new. Oh my gosh, like kind of like FOMO. Because the pace of the feature development is insane. And what I think is always great is that it's intentional. There's a lot of software products out there that seem like they just bloat. There's another player in the CRM space, I won't name it, but I think everybody can probably figure out which one I'm talking about, that doesn't seem as intentional. So let's pivot a little bit about what some of that roadmap, some of that development has done, and specifically from a business perspective, some of the business benefits, the impact that manufacturers see from using a system like HubSpot. Some of the benefits for HubSpot, things like ease of use, ability to get a team up and running really fast. Ben, talk to us a little bit about kind of the journey that Gerard Daniel went through. You talked about how you started in the marketing side. Share a little bit about kind of what that journey's been like and what some of the business benefits have been for Gerard Daniel.
Yeah, so definitely. So one of the things with the marketing is we had a previous CRM at first. We were using different email servers, everything like that, but everything was everywhere. So one of the things that HubSpot allowed us to do is pull everything in one place and allow it to work together. So I'll say, I don't want to say it was easy, but setting up the marketing segment of our company in HubSpot was the easy part of getting HubSpot set up. I mean, it was pulling everything in, get everything in there, integrating our business. Of course, most marketing teams are smaller than sales teams. So getting people to learn things is a bit easier to teach fewer people than a whole mass of people. But I think that the way we went was we started with the marketing hub and we went up to, then we added the sales hub eventually. And going from that is like we showed our sales team that, hey, it works for marketing. Look what you've got. We send these emails out. Here are some things that come back from this that you've been able to run forward with. And now you're able to work it in HubSpot and see that whole process from the beginning. It's not just me sending an email. Oh, I just sent an email, sales team, that we just sent out this email to our customers. Here it is. I'll let you know if we get anything back. Now they're able to see the minute it comes back and everything like that. I mean, one of the things it is streamlined operations. That's the main thing that it's really nice to do. It used to be the days of in your Rolodex. You pull it up, you have a sales guy over here, and they're in their own separate little world. And if one of them calls out sick and someone else calls in, they don't know what happened. Bob doesn't, or Rachel doesn't know what Ryan talked about the customer with about. But one of the things about HubSpot, it's right there in HubSpot. One of the things we have in our company is we have it tracking the emails that they send between customers. And that communication's golden. That way you don't get into a situation where one of your guys gets called up and says, oh, you talked to Rachel about this? Well, Rachel's out. I don't know exactly what it is. You're right on ball. And it shows the value. It shows you that you value customers even more, I think. It's available there for you for that fact. And to go on that fact, it avails you to be able to not be in that situation where you don't know what's going on. And you're able to amplify and actually upsell in that case as well. Because you can see that, hey, oh, this person talked to Ryan a while ago and he sold him this. Well, we can now sell him this maybe. Or tell him why this might matter and move the next steps. And instead of the times when we had previously, it was in this person's or this program or this program and didn't talk to each other. HubSpot's all there for you. So you're able to see the marketing journey. You're able to see the sales journey. It's the availability for remarketing is amazing. I know I'm a marketer, so I can speak of this all day about the new toys that I get in my toy box every time I wake up, look at HubSpot and say, oh, look, what's in beta now? I mean, one of the great things that I had this morning happen was I saw an email from one of my sales guys. They're like, oh, what's this new feature in HubSpot? Can you tell me about it? I honestly had a bit of egg on my face since I hadn't seen it yet because I hadn't even poked around in that part of HubSpot a bit. So I had to quickly learn what it was. And and go there.
I think that's the holy
Sorry,
grail
I
right
lost
there.
you.
I think we did lose you, but I think that's the holy grail for every marketer, Ben, is to have a salesperson reach out and say, this new tool, show me how this works. To actually have that alignment between sales and marketing is awesome. Yeah, I think we lost Ben while he tries to reconnect here. Let's talk a little bit more, Chris, about some of the ways that manufacturers are able to connect all those disparate systems that Ben had mentioned. So when he came in, it was a bunch of things, on the marketing side. We're seeing a lot of things, whether it's proprietary software that the manufacturer has that we're helping integrate with HubSpot, ERP systems, legacy systems that they've maybe built, trying to put together, easy configure, price, quote solutions to be able to actually get that sales process moving quicker. Talk a little bit about some of the solutions that you're seeing that in your day-to-day that manufacturers are coming to HubSpot to talk about.
Yeah, and I think you and Ben both hit the nail on the head. One of the biggest things that we see in this specific industry with manufacturers, even like with distributors too, is that there tends to be a lot of disparate tools that are leveraged across the process, whether it's marketing tools and like subcategory of that, like email tool, social tool, ads to like all these different systems in that place, different CRM or sales tools, ERP systems, quoting platforms, vendor databases. Like we really see it all. And it's one of the challenges that these companies have where we start to think about like misalignment across marketing and sales. And I think to Ben's point that he was making earlier with being able to centralize, like one of the big value props of HubSpot is that we have a central code database, right? So our contact record spans across all of the different levels of the product that we have, our marketing tools, our sales tools, our customer service tools. So that insight and transparency into who a contact is, what pages they're looking at, what emails they're opening, what sales conversations they're having, what support requests are coming in from that specific person, all lives in one place. So we start to consolidate a lot of the different tools that you'll see companies use just from a marketing and a CRM standpoint. The other side of it is then we start to look about like more of the complicated ERP or quoting systems and things like that. I've seen some companies who have gone about looking at alternative approaches for trying to integrate that into HubSpot. There are different ways that I've seen it done. Some companies have those systems still disparate and are working towards getting to a place where they can tie them together. But we've seen some companies use some of our other partners, like Deal Hub as an example of one, a configure, price, quote, or a CPQ type of tool that can be integrated into like any third-party cloud ERPs or databases and things like that to start to centralize not only the marketing and sales efforts, but that quoting piece of it too, and the client management and contracting and all of those things. And ultimately, it's allowing them to start to really limit the number of tech platforms that they're using and start to focus on a smaller consolidated version that can all sort of streamline and flow into one place. So you have that intelligence that Ben was talking about.
The biggest outcome of that, I think that we've seen with our manufacturing clients with that consolidation is the reduction of switching costs. So anytime in an organization, manufacturing or any other organization, where you have to constantly be switching between systems, that takes time, and that's time out of somebody's day. That creates an opportunity for there to be data leakage, which ultimately has the potential for lost revenue. So Rachel, maybe you can kind of share some of the specific use cases where we've seen opportunities to be able to remove some of those manual processes and some of those time issues by being able to create that unified experience inside of HubSpot.
Yeah, definitely. So we always say it's about like working smarter and not harder, and eliminating some of the downtime in between some of the communication. So quite a few examples come to mind. One, we have a partner with an intricate territory system that's divided not just by geo or by state, but also by zip code within that state. So we were able to customize and configure a way that based on form submission, it can route by zip code to that sales rep. Before, it was a manual lookup to see who it would fall under, and then a manual email would be sent out to that rep.
And when
so just allowing
manual, she means literally this person had a color-coded map in their cubicle that that went and looked to see who has this portion of the zip code.
I think when I was building that out in HubSpot, it was quite a refresher in geography for me. But yeah, we were able to automate that system. And then also we have a partner as well who had a proprietary software that they use as a lead gen tool. And when they would sign up when a user would sign up for that software, they would be given a unique key code, and it would be offline management of versions in another system. And kind of long story short, there we were able to connect that with HubSpot as well and streamline not only that unique login process, but also manage versions and be able to tell who has what where. So yeah, definitely 2 use cases there.
Yeah, and in both of those situations, that put dozens of hours back in somebody's month that is now able to focus on supporting the inside sales team, which is ultimately revenue generation for the organization. So I want to pivot here a little bit and talk about, okay, so all these things sound great. We understand that the manufacturing industry has a lot of complexity associated. The sales channels, you may sell direct to the end user. If you do, that's awesome. You're one of the few manufacturers that has a direct line to the end user. More often than not, we see that most manufacturers have some sort of mix of, sometimes we're talking to the end user, sometimes there's somebody in the relationships that's specifying our project. We have a set of distributors or reps that are out there talking about our product. It's a very complicated sales channel. We have a lot of different systems. It's an industry that has been very quick at implementing technology on the manufacturing floor for driving efficiency, not so much in the front of the house for sales, marketing, and customer support. So it can feel a little overwhelming sometimes when you start to think about how do I even make this switch? So Ben, maybe you can talk a little bit about what that journey has been like at Gerard Daniel. You mentioned you kind of started with the marketing side. We've known each other for a while. So maybe you can share some battle tested lessons from the trenches about, what's the best way for a manufacturer thinking about trying to modernize their front of the house.
Well, the first thing is that you need to make sure you keep it simple. You can't jump into something and say, oh, I'm going to start with an aircraft carrier. You have to start with a rowboat. I mean, you literally have to be that person of, all right, what's the easiest thing that we can get transferred over to automation? And in our case, it was the marketing department, and more smaller in that case, it's the email, sending out emails. And so you have to learn steps. So you can't just say, hey, even if you have an unlimited amount of people working on a project like this, in manufacturing world, it's moving fast, and your sales directs where you go with marketing and how you're doing that. So you can't turn that switch off for even a minute. So you want to focus on, hey, how can we get there without hurting ourselves in the company? And so start small, work big. And with manufacturing, it might sound simple, but even that's not simple because most things are large and bulky processes, to say the least. And so you have to figure out your scope. And that's the biggest thing. You have to make sure you have multiple scopes at first as well. I know that sounds weird. I know it's usually, hey, you have one scope and you go for it, but it's start little. And that first thing is to give them buy-in. I mean, getting them to say, okay, we can work this process. This process can start going over. So we recently brought on a new company in our Gerard Daniel family. And one of the things I'm working on with their team is getting us started. And we're literally doing this switch over again. So now I'm starting the second time and going through this whole process with manufacturing.
You're a pro now, Ben.
I wish. It's when manufacturing, it's never the same thing twice. But one of the things that I've started on is that we're starting the changeover that I'm trying to make it painless. So one of the things I've done is switching over forms. But I don't do the forms where the deal appears in HubSpot like I do with our more advanced system over at our Gerard Daniel does. I have it set so it sends an email still, like it did the old forms. But it's still in HubSpot though. So all the data is there and captured in HubSpot and allows us to do that. But that's just one step. I mean, we're not going to be able to jump right to the deal stage point for this company because they haven't been living there yet.
Yeah.
They have a process of someone gets an email when a lead comes in, and that email goes to the next person. So the first place I've implemented is, hey, let's replace this with HubSpot. You can't tell the difference. You can't tell if it's HubSpot or not at this point. It's working like it was before. But one of the big differences we see as marketers and as the management team as well is we see the data. And one of the great things about HubSpot is you can be data-driven approaches for everything. And having that data in there with the marketing side and the sales side, and even if we're not able to use it yet, it allows you to create the history of data. And so we're able to start on that timeline, and then we can switch next project. And you just have to build stepping stones. And sometimes you bite off more than you can chew, and you have to take a back seat to something. Like, for example, we're 2.5 years in HubSpot at Gerard Daniel right now. And I will say that we're probably not the most advanced people that Chris has worked with in HubSpot, but we're making sure it works. And that's the most important thing, is you can't jump into something because it's a new toy that you know it can do all these things. You make sure it works for you. And one of the things about HubSpot is it's able to do that. Out of the box, it's able to be what you need it to be. It's not like some of the stringent ones you've seen that I've worked with in the past that, oh, you have to do it this way, and this way. And you have to put in information this way. One of the great things about HubSpot is the availability for fluidity and the ability for it to work for you, not you to work for it. And that's one of the things in business that you have to remember. Your tools shouldn't direct where you're going. You should be able to direct your tools where you want to go.
Totally.
And just be able to go from product to product is one of the great things in HubSpot too. You don't have to buy it all at once. You can buy it, like I said earlier, it's started at marketing, worked our way to sales. We had service thrown in as well in that case. So now we have the whole family of HubSpot services. But we didn't start that way because we couldn't do that with our business. Because our business, we needed to stop and go one step at a time. And that's the way we really had to do it. And earning buy-in along the way is very important. So one, getting the sales buy-in, I am glad and I'm very thankful for all the sales team. If they're watching this, thank you guys. But their buy-in is amazing. Like I said earlier, before I think I was cut off, is I had one of my sales guys reach out to me this morning about HubSpot. He was asking about a new feature before I even rolled it out for the sales team. And that's just, once you get that buy-in, it's wonderful and helps you throughout the way. But you have to prove it. It's one of those things. You have to prove that it's available and it's there for you and that it works for you and doesn't make it harder. It makes something easier is the thing.
Totally. I think one of the things that you've said that really resonates with me is the importance of getting quick wins and really understanding, how can you figure out a spot within your organization to prove efficacy and to be able to prove that HubSpot's here to help, not hinder. I always tell my team, I always tell our clients that technology is not the strategy, that you should have a strategy that technology can help support. Chris, maybe you can give some, in your role as a solutions engineer, you spend a lot of time with clients working on that scoping phase. And I think that it's an area where if it's not done right, to Ben's point, you're not going to be able to get the buy-in. You're going to go in head first trying to do too much because you haven't identified, what is the minimum viable solution that an organization needs to show success with their investment. So maybe you can talk a little bit more about what, how can an organization approach requirements gathering? Who are some of those people that should be part of that conversation? What questions should they be asking?
Yeah, it's a good question. And it's the answer is it depends, right? I think a lot of what we try to understand when we work in the sales process is understanding what is driving the conversation in the first place, like what a company's goals or challenges are and what impact that's having on the business. And a lot of the times what we see is it's, kind of similar to how Ben expressed what their initial state was before they started using HubSpot, is that it's disparate tools, it's disparate technologies, marketing and sales are misaligned. We're missing opportunities to grow or engage with customers. And so for us, it's outlining what those causes are, what the impacts are, and then how do we kind of look at what's the big picture here, right? And as we do a technology scope and we start to understand the different systems that are in play, we then start to drive, kind of a roadmap of what phases should we look at this in? Is it phase one of we're going to implement marketing and we're going to implement the sales hub to just start to do some basic email communication, lead handoff, tracking, reporting, automation, things of that nature. And then getting to a phase two, phase three, where we start to pull in more of the sales process. We integrate these outside systems into HubSpot, and we really build a customized solution. And some companies will bite all of that off as early in the process as they can. Some do it 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the road. There are a lot of factors that go into that, and it's hard to say what makes sense for each company because everyone's unique. But I think the big thing is looking at and the recommendations that we typically make are, you're not going to have this done in 2 months or 3 months or 6 months. You have to look at it in phases, because to Ben's point, and he may have said this offline, but it's a valid point, is that you can't stop the car. You can't stop the engine from going. So you have to keep everything running in your business while you're also looking at implementing and integrating new technology. And so what we typically will do is we'll do that, scope of work, understand a current company's current tech stack, what some of the goals and challenges they're faced with, and we'll help them build out a plan. And a lot of the times, not to give you a plug, Ryan, but it'll be a recommendation to talk to someone like Lake One, who not only has expertise in HubSpot, but knows the manufacturing space and has developers on staff who can look at the different systems that you have internally and understand integration capabilities and where things can be streamlined or where processes can be made more efficient, and then help them, sort of roll that out to their customers. That's a pretty common use case that we see in this industry, because the technologies, the teams, all the different systems tend to be spread out, and there tend to be a lot of them. So having that sort of central team and strategy up front, and then building out a phase plan, which a lot of the times involves a partner like Lake One to help out, I think is crucial in getting you to a point where, like Ben said, now there's buy-in from the team. There are people who are asking about new features that want to extend the use case, because I don't want to speak for Ben and Gerard Daniel, but what I imagine their salespeople are seeing is similar to what we see. I get value out of the CRM. I get value out of going into a contact record and seeing what they're engaging with, what they're clicking on, who they've talked to, how, what their involvement is across all of the different marketing, sales, and customer service funnels that we have. So, as people start to deploy this with the correct plan, they'll get more and more buy-in over time, because the CRM isn't something that they have to work to use. It's really working for them.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point of clarification, especially the way that you approach thinking about bringing it into the organization, that it's not just something that's done one day either. I heard another solutions partner, and I don't remember who it was, so I can't credit that person appropriately, but they always referenced implementing, in this case HubSpot, but implementing any sort of CRM. It's a product, not a project. And I think a lot of times organizations think about a start and end date to implementing, whether it's HubSpot, whether it's Salesforce or anything, as just when am I done with it, rather than treating it like a software company that owns a product, just like HubSpot does, where it's constantly what's next, how do we improve it to support, in HubSpot's case, their clients, but in Ben's case at Gerard Daniels, his clients are his sales team, his marketing team, his executives, everybody that has the needs out of that database. So I think that's a really valid point. I want to
add to that too, Ryan, because I think it's, as we talk about timeline and as we're project planning and scoping, which is really important, we have been known to crush out some crazy deadlines in the need of cutting over, and Ben's laughing because he knows, in cutting over from other systems. So I think although we say it's definitely a long game in terms of being able to fully utilize it, we are in most cases, and because HubSpot has functionality somewhat out of the box that is ready to use, we're able to get teams up quickly where they're able to utilize pieces of the platform while we work on others, or make cutoff dates depending on when we sunset old systems and move to new. So it's not, I'd say the fact that it's multi-layered doesn't necessarily equate to an extended timeline if teams are on the fence. it can still be actionable, and it's not crazy to think that you could be up and going sooner than you might think. So.
Yeah, just plug on that even further, and just it's one of the things that helps you do that is HubSpot's team. I mean, one of the things I love about HubSpot is that I'm able to pick up the phone, call one of the tech guys right away, and say, "Hey, this isn't working for me. Is it just me, or is this a failure?" Because they're really good about saying, "Hey, this is not working." I remember during one of our major integrations, we were moving a lot of data into HubSpot, and one of the things HubSpot did is you guys went down there for a second because one of your cloud servers failed. It wasn't you guys; it was a server you guys were on.
No.
And one of the things you guys helped us with was make sure we didn't lose data. We kept it backed up. It was one of the great things. You guys helped us get set up, made sure all of our stuff was safe. And that was the same day. I know with a previous service we used before, it was, oh, yeah, we got to get our tech support out to you guys. We can't help you guys immediately. It's just, we'll get to you within 24 hours, 48 at the max. So, I mean,
they didn't try to sell you, but if you actually pay for our super premium preferred support plan, we'll respond to you within 2 hours.
Oh, I've seen that happen.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things HubSpot's wonderful about is level support. It's not like they're selling you something and then they leave. They're there for you to help progress that company and progress the thing through. If you don't know anything and you can't get a hold of one of their service guys for some reason, maybe it's late at night and no one's there, which is understandable. Why would some be sometimes? They have the great databases and the resources pages you guys have. Chris, I'm blanking what you guys call that. I'm sorry.
The knowledge base.
Yeah, knowledge base academy, 24/7 support too. So 24/7, 365 support too. So,
wow, it rattles right off your tongue like they trained it into you.
It's like I've been here for a while.
Yeah.
But it's all that together. It's not just that. They don't just sell you a product and leave. It's HubSpot's there, and they know when they can't help as well, which they have the partners that are able to do that. These HubSpot's not always be there. They're not always going to hold your hand. But great organizations like Lake One, sorry, I have to give you a little plug there. You helped us going from crawling to walking, and that was amazing. And the ability to do that. So
awesome. I appreciate that. So we've got about 10 minutes left, and I want to make sure that if there is anybody watching that has a burning question about HubSpot, could it do this? This is our organization. You're thinking about it. You have some question about, you're on the fence. Maybe you have a question for Ben about how would you handle this? Go ahead and get that question in here before we kind of move into our wrap up here. So I'll just give a little bit of time in case there's any of those questions out there that you guys want to get in for those watching. And I'll defer to Rachel if she's seeing anything come in on the LinkedIn threads.
Nothing yet. We could go ahead and round it out, and don't worry, I'll be sure to
sure.
And if it comes in.
So as we kind of round out the corner here, I want to ask, one last question of each person on the panel here. We've been here for 40 minutes talking about a lot of different elements of why manufacturers might want to think about HubSpot. What is the one thing you would want somebody to leave this conversation with? It could be, a piece of advice if they're thinking about HubSpot. It could be a piece of advice, even if they're just thinking about, CRM, sales, marketing, alignment, automation. What would be the one thing that you would want somebody to walk away from this conversation with? And I'm going to start with you, Rachel, not to put you on the spot, but I'm going to start with you first.
Oh, there's so many things that come to mind, but I'll give one piece of advice. And I think so oftentimes we join up with partners, in particular, sometimes manufacturers who are a little ways down their HubSpot journey. It might not be a fresh implementation from the start. And I think that it's never too late to go in and right the ship, to get your teams talking, to get sales, marketing, and support talking to each other, that everything can be reconfigured and can be streamlined going forward. So maybe the message that it's never too late, even if you think you're too far into HubSpot, trust us, you're not. We've seen a lot of things, and we can help right the ship. So never too late, I'd say.
Cool. Chris?
Yeah, I think the big one is that like the manufacturers that I talk to, there's often like a time of where we're sort of like frozen in a decision because there's so many different things to try to take on. And I think the big takeaway that I have from continued conversations with Ben over the years and other manufacturers that I've worked with is that there's always a place to start, right? Like, you know, it doesn't have to be, you know, the future state of like everything's fully set up, integrated, tied together on day one. There's always a place that we can start and a place that we add value because of how we can align just out of the box, the marketing and sales teams, and start to streamline a lot of those efforts into one system. There's always a place where you can, you know, kind of kick off and get things going and start to see the value that your team gets and grow the usage over time. That's the big thing for me, because a lot of companies get frozen in indecision in terms of not knowing where to start, and there's always somewhere to start. So
Awesome. And Ben?
Well, of course, last, right? Everyone takes all the good stuff. One of the things that I think is the biggest takeaway that should be is that it's small steps, and the buy-in is very important. It's people that make a business strong. It's the people that are going to use the system, and they're the important bits. You can use everything high tech as possible, but it's all about the people who run it, the people whose signatures at the bottom of those emails, the people who are working it day for day. If it doesn't work for them, but it looks really cool for you, that doesn't help. The big thing is make it work for your people, because people are what a company is. Without good people and without the ability to use it and the users itself, what are we? We're just playing with some toys on the internet, right?
Totally. And I'll add to that kind of an echo of what everybody has said here. Rachel's heard me say this a zillion times. Anybody that's heard me talk has heard me say this. Progress over perfection. So it's an echo of what Chris said of just get started. It doesn't have to be perfect, especially because of the complexity that manufacturers face in their sales channel and their distribution channels. You're not going to be able to solve for everything, but if you can solve for the largest impact on your organization, follow where the revenue comes from, start there and just get started, as Chris said. I think you'll be miles ahead of your competitors. Which is really where we want to make sure that you're at as you start thinking about 2024. All right, that is all the time we have. Chris, Ben, I appreciate you both taking some time out of the day to talk with us. If people want to connect with you, where would you like them to find you guys? LinkedIn? Where we're at?
I was deferring to Ben, but yeah, LinkedIn is a great place to connect. And yeah, I'd say that's great for me.
One of the things on LinkedIn is amazing connection, of course. But of course, just message me on any of the platforms I'm on. Unlike most marketers, I'm not on much, but LinkedIn's where you can get me.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. And
Thanks.
Go ahead, Rachel. Oh.
And we have our little learn more QR code up here. If you'd like to learn more about Lake One, how we partner with manufacturers, we've got some great content. We have our next upcoming events. If you scan the QR code, you'll be able to get all the information. And of course, you can reach out to us directly too.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.
Bye.